Good attack, go. Stand by.
And welcome to the Legends Community Radio Show here on the powervoices.com. I'm your host, Greg Bell, and we've got a pretty exciting night planned for you right now. Going to have a lot of fun. Of course, coming up in the top of the hour, I'm going to be talking with a dear friend of mine, one of the only two-time Heisman Trophy winners in history. And, you know, that's got to be about the biggest award that can happen at this time of the year. Of course, the Downtown New York Athletic Club will be naming the guys coming up soon, and we're going to be talking to the legend that is Archie Griffin and finding out what he thinks about the upcoming season for the Heisman and who's going to be joining him and all the past Heisman Trophy winners in New York in December. Of course, Lamar Jackson's name is going to fly out there. Saquon Barkley, probably the biggest name that everybody's throwing out there right now is Baker Mayfield. But I'm going to try and talk with Archie and find out some of his thoughts and see if he thinks another person will walk away with a two-time Heisman Trophy that for over 42 years he's been the only one. Also going to talk a lot of Rams football. You know, the Rams right now are playing great football. And I mean, when I say great, I'm talking outstanding football. The Rams right now are 8-3. And there are a host of guys that are sitting and basically putting themselves in a position to head to the Pro Bowl, not only go to the Pro Bowl, but be all pro as well. You know, when you start talking about the Rams, you got to start off talking about Jared Goff. The guy has had an amazing season when you look how far he's come from last year. Maybe it was just, you know, the Jeff Fisher syndrome, as so many people have said in the past. Jeff was not a quarterback coach. He was more of a defensive-minded guy, and that's kind of why Jared Goff didn't blossom the way he is with Sean McVay right now. Of course, from there, you're going to look at Todd Gurley, who probably will be heading back to the Pro Bowl for a second time. And Jared Goff, I mean, let's face it. He's going to be heading to a Pro Bowl the way he's been playing. He's ranked right up at the top, and you just never know how voting goes. I tell people all the time, when I was in the Pro Bowl, you just never know who's voting for you. It's one of those things where you just kind of wish and you hope to see your name roll off the ballots at the end of the year because it's a great trip to Hawaii. And of course, this year, I'm not even sure. I'd have to look up and try and see if I can find out. Are they going to be playing that game in Florida or are they going to be back in Hawaii? Just a lot of things going on with the Rams. Of course, we've got the holidays. You're going to see a lot of Rams in the community. You know, a lot of guys are going to be doing some great things. Next week's game, this coming Sunday, you're going to see the Shoes. They're doing a Support Your Charity weekend that's coming up. So you're just going to see a lot of great things happening with the National Football League. But even more importantly, you're going to be seeing probably Hecker, Zerline, Donald. I mean, I could probably reel off about 6 or 7 guys that are going to be headed to the Pro Bowl. And this is from a team that last year won 3 games. So, of course, the Rams are moving in a great direction. If you're Ram fans, you got to start saying to yourself, what is it going to take to draw people out to the stadium? I mean, they're still averaging somewhere close to that 58,000 number. And it's sad when you think about it because we're playing so good right now. And you got to get this fan support and get them out so we can actually get a chance to see great football, because last year we didn't see that. And this year you're seeing what I think is some of the best football on the planet right now compared to the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, mind you, and before I go too much further, let me say one thing. I did come down with a chest cold with all the traveling, but I had this line up with Archie and also with the guys from the Port Chicago 50, so I couldn't miss this week. So if my voice sounds a little hoarse, I'm going to apologize in advance. But just remember, I'm doing my best to stay with you guys because you tune in every week to hear the Legends Community Show here on the Power of Voices. And, of course, to listen to me, Greg Bell, talk a lot of football, a lot of very little politics, but a lot of fun. Of course, like I told you, joining us shortly will be Archie Griffin, and then we'll talk to the guys from the Port Chicago 50 as their show will be coming up this weekend. And if you haven't gotten a chance to get online, get yourselves tickets, plan on coming out to Rialto Performance, their performing theater at the Rialto High School on Friday this week. They're going to be showing the play Port Chicago 50. Guys, if you haven't looked it up, take the moment to look at it. This is one of those hidden moment type history lessons that you want to hear about because there was just a phenomenal occurrence or an explosion back in 1944. And it was left out of all of our history books. And they're bringing it back because, believe it or not, one of the gentlemen who was pardoned back when Clinton left office, his son is still alive and living in the Inland Empire. So that's one of the reasons we brought that play back to the Inland Empire. And again, on Saturday, they have two shows, one at 2 o'clock and again, another one at 8 o'clock. And, I talked just shortly about the Rams. You can't be in Los Angeles and not talk about both teams. So, of course, we're going to talk about the Chargers just as well. And let me tell you this. Midway through the season, we were talking about the Chargers. They got off to such a bad start. And we talked about them not doing much of anything. And then all of a sudden, the Chargers caught fire. And when I say they caught fire, they caught fire. And they went from being a mediocre team that could only get about 17,000 into the stadium to being number 2 in their conference. And they are one game out of the playoff race. I mean, this Charger team has started to click. Not only is Phillip Rivers playing extremely well, all his receivers are finally coming to bat for him the way they were in the past years. And it's just amazing to see that this Charger team that we thought was going to go into abyss is now being talked about better than the Raiders, better than the Kansas City Chiefs. Think about it. The Chiefs got off to a 5-0 start. We just said they were destined for the Super Bowl. And now, what are we talking about the Kansas City Chiefs? They're behind the Chargers now, losing 6 straight. They're sitting at 5-6, just like the Chargers. But the Chargers actually beat the Chiefs, so they have a 1-game advance over the Chiefs if it goes down to a tie score. So all you can talk about is how great the LA teams are playing right now. And it's just amazing, guys. That's all I can tell you. When you start talking about football in Los Angeles, this is the kind of football it was back in the late 80s when I played here, because not only were we winning, but the Raiders were winning back then. And it's just it's exciting. It's just exciting. I want to talk about college football right now. College polls came out. Do you agree or do you disagree? Auburn is sitting at number 2. Clemson sitting at number 1. Excuse me. And then you've got Wisconsin sitting there, and you also have Oklahoma. Of course, Alabama's on the outside looking in right now, and so is Ohio State. What do you think going into these final weeks? Are we going to have the kind of play from these teams that are going to be exemplary of being in the top 4 spots. So many people are questioning, can you get 2 teams from the SEC? I don't know, but you know what? I'll tell you what we'll do. We're going to go right to the Power of Voices hotline. Joining us here tonight on the Legends Community Show, a dear friend of mine, and I'm going to ask him a whole lot of questions because he's been in the NC2A for well over 20 plus years, retired from his alumni position at the University of the Ohio State. One of the greatest running backs of all time when you start talking about college football, the only 2-time Heisman Trophy winner, joining us here on the Power of Voices, Archie Griffin. Archie, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing fine, Greg. How are you doing, man?
Man, I'm doing great, man. It's so great to have you on the show. And Archie, I don't want to keep you a long time, but I got some the Ohio State questions I got to run by you. And then I want to talk about the one thing I think you know better than anybody is the Heisman Trophy. So let's start off with the Ohio State Buckeyes. Give me your view right now with the Buckeyes going into the Big Ten Championship against Wisconsin. How do you think they're going to fare against, right now, one of the few undefeated teams in the country right now?
Well, it's going to be quite a challenge because anytime you play a team like Wisconsin, it's a knockdown, drag-out game. It's all going to be determined, in my opinion, up front, that line of scrimmage. I mean, what we've got to do is we've got to be able to run the football on them, and we've got to be able to stop them from running the football because they always have a big offensive line, and they've got a great running back and JT. I tell you what, he's pretty doggone good. I really like watching him run, but I hope he doesn't run on us the way that he's been running because Jonathan Taylor really does do an outstanding job for them at that running back position. But they've also got a really good tight end that's playing real well for them, Fumagalli. He's doing a terrific job. We played him last year, and he did a great job against us last year. We got to make sure that we don't let him run free in the secondary like we did a bit last year. But it's going to be a great game. We've got some talent on our team. Hopefully our quarterback will be able to play. Our own JT to be able to play. I know that for sure. He got hurt in this game last week that we played against Michigan, but hopefully he'll be able to play. He's one of our big-time leaders, and we need him in there. But the good thing about us is that we have some faith in our backup quarterback. He did a great job for us, Haskins did, and we're really proud of the way that he played because under him we scored 3 times against that team up north, and it worked out that we won that football game that puts us actually in to this Big Ten championship game. So
yeah, now let's
looking
talk
forward
about
to it. It's going to be a
you
great
mentioned
game.
something just a few minutes ago about it starts up front. Archie, when you look at the game, and you played in the 70s, I played in the 80s. And when you look at the game now in the mid-2020, 15 to 17, what's different about the game today?
Well, from a running back standpoint, and I think you and I both played where we had somebody blocking for us in the backfield a lot. You see a lot of one-back sets now. You see a lot of throwing now. Quarterbacks are throwing the ball, but they're pretty much like runs because a lot of short passes are being thrown. They're completing short passes. Those are like runs back in our day, basically, because we didn't get those short passes, but we just ran the football. I think the big thing, though, for me is looking at the size of these guys and the strength of these guys and the speed of these guys. I mean, it is really amazing. And I think that all goes back to the training they get now, even in high school, the sophisticated weight training programs and all the things they've got going on in high school. It makes a terrific difference when they get to college.
And talking about the speed and the size of it, you can't talk about the size and the impact of it and not bring up the word concussion and talk about the CTE. I was talking to somebody just recently, and they asked me that question, and I'm going to pose that same question to you because so much has been talked about at the National Football League level, and it's starting to dribble down into the college. How do you think it's going to change the game, and will the football game that we see today be that similar 10 or 20 years from now? Will it be that same game?
That's a great question. I think the game's already changed. I mean, I'm seeing guys getting kicked out of games left and right for hits to the head, and some not even true hits to the head get kicked out. That's just what I would have thought would have been a really good hit getting kicked out of games. So it's changed a little bit already, and I got to believe that it's going to change even more over the years to come. We played a very physical football game, and the game of football in itself is very, very physical. And I say to people all the time, if you play football, there's going to be a time that you get hit and you're going to get concussed. It may not be where you're totally unconscious, but you're going to get concussed. I mean, I know that I was unconscious twice during the time that I played, and I can't tell you how many times I've got hit and I heard that doing going on in my head, and then all that.
See the lights flying by your face.
That's right. See those blue lights. I mean, those are all concussions, and they come from hard hits, and that's what football is. People hitting hard. It's a brutal game, and when you play it, those things happen.
Yeah, and you've been fortunate that you've been in a university like the Ohio State that has continued the winning tradition that it's kept over so many years. Now, a couple years ago, you had a great running back in the name of Ezekiel Elliott, and I think I saw something where you were talking about the fact that it's been a while since that trophy that you hold so tightly. You got two of them. That it's gone to a running back. Has the game changed to the point where people talk about all the time that running backs are being devalued? Has it changed to the point where, we're seeing a devalue in that running back position?
I think we have. But I would say this, when it comes to the Heisman, it may not be a running back that's going to win it this year, but I got to tell you, there's some very special ones out there this year that I think will be probably in the top five when you look at Bryce Love at Stanford, Saquon Barkley at Penn State, and even Jonathan Taylor at Wisconsin. I mean, I think those guys will probably end up being somewhere in the top five. Now, I'm not saying that one of them will win it, because I think it'll probably be a quarterback again this year that'll win it. I mean, you certainly have Baker Mayfield.
Two really outstanding ones that are going to be invited. Let me just ask a question, since you brought up the Heisman and brought me into it. So much talk has gone around Lamar Jackson, Baker Mayfield, Saquon, Bryce, Jonathan Taylor. Is there a sleeper out there that most people probably haven't even heard his name being mentioned? At one time it was Josh Adams that was at Notre Dame. Talked about the running back at Notre Dame. And all of a sudden now it's kind of become the Baker Mayfield show from a media standpoint. But you know more than anyone that the votes are really what makes a difference. And Archie, I got to ask this question because so many people have asked me, and I told them I have no clue. Do you get two votes? Do you get two choices?
That's the most common question I get, Greg. But I do only get one vote. I keep telling people I'm lobbying to get two, since I do have two trophies.
You got two trophies? Everybody asks me that question. I laugh about it. I go, well, I got to assume he gets two because he got two trophies.
I only get one vote.
I assume you get two votes.
No, I only get one vote, but that's okay for now anyway. But it's an honor to have that opportunity to vote. But I think it's going to be an interesting race. I mean, everybody's talking about Baker Mayfield, but I tell you, I think people have gone to sleep on Lamar Jackson, because if you look at what he's done this year, I mean, he's had just about the same season he had a year ago. I mean, he's still playing.
I think the only difference is the record. I mean, his team hasn't performed at a 9-2, or last year they were 10-2. This year, I think they're 8-4. So that's been the only difference in his numbers.
That's exactly right. But the guy is a fabulous athlete, and I love watching him play the game. But probably the leading guy right now is Baker Mayfield. But I tell you, Bryce Love, who's playing some great football, he's been playing injured. But man, does he have some numbers out there. And I love watching Saquon Barkley run. I mean, I just think he's a terrific running back, and I think he's going to make a great pro as well.
Well, I mean, you bring up another question that I know everybody has to ask you as well, is, records are meant to be broken. We all know that. And you've been the only guy for over 42 years to carry away that trophy twice. And Lamar Jackson, being a junior, still, even if he doesn't win it this year, still has a chance. Are you pulling for a guy, or are you holding on to the record?
Well, I tell you what, I tell people all the time, it doesn't bother me if somebody else wins it twice. I did it, so I know there's somebody else out there that can do it and that will do it. I've been saying for a long time there'll be somebody else. And I really thought going into this season, and the vote hadn't come in yet, I thought Lamar Jackson would be the guy. Again, you look at his numbers; they're still pretty doggone special. I mean, he's still has done a terrific job. So who knows? It could be this year. But again, you mentioned the fact that they've got about 4 losses, and that certainly has hurt his opportunity. But I think he's going to be in that race. I really do. But I
let me
believe
ask you,
somebody
I got a
else
question
going
to
to do it.
ask you in regards to what you were just talking about. You know, back when you were in college, and let's face it, there have been some times like Paul Hornung had a losing team that actually won the Heisman. Has the Heisman Trophy been, you know, back in when I was a kid growing up, and when you won it, and the years I saw when George Rogers or Billy Sims, it was really an individual performance award. But do you think it's starting to creep to where, you know, is how that individual performs for his team award now? You know, where you lose games, you don't win.
Yeah, well, I hate for it to get to that. Because if you look over the past, there has been some athletes that have been on teams that didn't have great records that's won the Heisman Trophy. I kind of believe during the time that I played, though, that the fact that we had some great teams had a lot to do with me winning as well. I mean, I felt that I played extremely well, but I'll be honest with you, I always felt that I was in the right place at the right time with the right people to make winning the Heisman Trophy happen for me, and I've always appreciated having been in that situation. But as far as now, I think it's gotten to, you got to be on a winning team in order to win the Heisman Trophy, a team that's doing extremely well. And that's really what it's gotten down to, the way I see it.
Okay. Now, before I let you go, I got to talk just a touch of that of National Football League talk. You had your years playing in the National Football League. Of course, we've already talked about the concussions and the CTE. But when you look at the game of the National Football League, I mean, just take a look at what happened this past weekend. Does the NFL have an image problem right now when you start seeing MMA fights out on the field and teams clearing? You know, what do you think about some of that?
Oh my gosh, that well, I tell you, I hated to see that happen because that it kind of makes the NFL and all of us that played the game look kind of bad because those type of things really shouldn't be happening out on the field. Brawls like that, and people throwing off helmets and swinging at people, and it just didn't look good, and it didn't bode well for the NFL. And I'm sure that they're going to take the appropriate, make the appropriate punishments for the athletes that were involved in that.
Yeah, and finally, Arch. I mean, I gotta ask you the question that so many people ask me. You know, what was your feeling earlier in the season with everything that went down with the National Football League? What's going on with Colin Kaepernick? The whole flag and kneeling. You know, what were some of your thoughts? Because, of course, you're at a university where a freedom of speech is a great thing to have. You know, what was the message being filtered down to the young guys? Because they're our future of the National Football League.
Well, absolutely. There's no question about it. But I will say this, Colin Kaepernick, he really had, he expressed himself and his right to do what he was doing. So, I don't fault him for that. I mean, you stand up for what you believe in, because they say you can fall for anything, and he had a belief, and he kneeled for it, and people can say what they want, but it really did make an impact. Unfortunately, people looked at what he was kneeling for the wrong way. They thought he was disrespecting the flag and disrespecting the military and things like that. That wasn't what it was all about at all. He was standing up because of the injustice that he felt was going on in the country, and that's what it was all about for him. Unfortunately, people looked at that the wrong way. And, I respect him for doing what he did. And you got to respect the guy who really, puts it on the line in front of millions of people. And he did that. And unfortunately, he had not gotten opportunities because of it. But I think when you look at this from years from now, people are going to realize that he was really a very, very strong person, and he kneeled for what he really believed in.
Yeah, I've had a lot of pros and cons. The only thing I think I've told people, I believed in his message and what he was trying to get across. But like all great messages, you have to continue to voice that opinion. And right now, the one thing I'm probably disappointed is I want to hear what Colin has to say today. You start a message. You gotta, it's almost kind of like when you're writing a paper. You gotta have a thought. You got to have a body and then you got to have a conclusion.
Right.
And right now,
I agree with that.
He's kind of lost that body. He's lost the body of his message. It's kind of just floating out there, and nobody's heard from him in over a year now. And the one thing I tell people all the time is, I believed in this message. I still believe in this message because we've lived that life. We've seen it. I tell people all the time, unless you've walked in my shoes, you can't understand it. So and when I say that, if you're not an African American and seen some of the things that we've had to go through, you don't really understand the message at heart. You see it and you kind of feel it, but it's not at your heart level. And so what he was trying to do, he got it started, but now it's kind of fluttering. I don't know where he stands on the message today.
You need to finish it. You're absolutely right. But again, he got something started that really kind of took off, and folks in the NFL really jumped on board and got courage. It didn't help when the president came out and said the things that he said about the players in the NFL. I think that just made them want to say, "Hey, we're going to do this even more." So again, I admire what he did because he wasn't doing it to get other people to do it. He was doing it because of what he believed in. But again, I agree with you in the sense that people do want to hear from him and hear his thoughts now and see kind of what he's doing.
Right. Well, Archie, let me tell you what. I truly appreciate you taking the time. I know you're 3 hours ahead of me here, so it's late at night. I know the kids are grown and gone, so you're an empty nester like me. So I know that you're not rushing to go to bed, but I appreciate you stopping into the Legends Community Show. Hopefully we get a chance to talk to you another time.
Well, it sounds good to me, Greg, and I appreciate you having me on. And wishing you the best of luck,
Look here.
man. I hope you had a good time at home.
Archie, I've been traveling, and I got back here and got a chest cold, but I said, you know what? I can't change my show because I got my guy coming on.
Yeah, well, thank you. Hey, man,
all right,
take care, man, and God bless you.
Appreciate it. You take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Yes, indeed. That was two-time Heisman Trophy winner, as I told you. Two Columbus legends getting a chance to sit down and just talk football. Hopefully you enjoyed a lot of the things he had to say. It's pretty amazing. So many guys, you talk to them. It's always funny when you hear guys talk about the fact that they got a record, and man, you know what? I don't really want somebody to break my record. It's a really pleasure when you can see somebody like an Archie Griffin. Like I said, he was a mentor of mine growing up. He's a guy that we all wanted to emulate and become a two-time Heisman Trophy winner. And it's great when you can hear a guy like him say to you that, he knows that somebody else is going to win that award, and he cheers for him. You heard him say it himself. He's a Lamar Jackson supporter right now. Hey, guys, of course, as I told you, coming up at the bottom of the hour, we're going to have some of the guys from Fort Chicago 50 who is going to be performing this off-Broadway play in the city of Rialto this Friday and Saturday. Friday's show starting, get out there about 7:30, show starting at 8. And on Saturday, it starts at 2 and an evening show at 8. And joining us on the PowerOfVoices.com network is Dennis Rowe, the co-writer and director of the play. Dennis, how you doing tonight? Did I lose Dennis there? Okay, he's coming up right now. I'm checking with my guy Lee. Y'all know I'm cold. I couldn't be in the studio, so I'm doing it from the old lovely love seat here at home. I think I got him on there right now. Dennis, how you doing tonight?
Actually, it's David Shackelford, co-writer.
David. Oh, okay.
Yes.
See, they should have let me know it was going to be you, one of the also
Yes.
co-writers and one of the co-stars of Port Chicago 50. David, I know you
Yes.
guys were rehearsing this evening and getting ready for a big weekend out in Rialto, California. Give our listeners the good version. I don't care if you take you don't have to be too long, but give them the short version of really what the impact of this play and just the points of why this play is being presented and why it makes it so special.
Well, the fact that we need to know our history, not just Black history, but military history, American history, a story that is untold, which makes it important. It's about sailors in World War II who were going through some injustice and had a serious incident in Northern California, which is Port Chicago, happened, and 50 of the sailors stood up against injustice. And so that's basically what the story is about. It's not all serious. It has some fun parts to it as well, but it gives the audience a look at a part of history or a slice of history that many do not know of.
Yeah, and not only are you playing the part of the young Meeks, right?
Yes, Freddie Meeks.
Yep, Freddie Meeks. I mean, it's a joy because I think that, Mayor Robinson, who's one on my board for Athletes for Life, she's just astonishing at meeting people and talking to people. And I believe she met Freddie Meeks' son, and he actually lives in the Inland Empire. So that was another reason why we wanted to bring this play out to the Inland Empire, because he's a resident of the Inland Empire. But let me ask you this question. It's off Broadway. What have been some of the things that feedback you've heard about the play?
Oh, I've heard a lot of great feedback. One audience member told me they were touched to tears, and they were still crying at that moment. They teared up, and it really touched their hearts and their lives to see what these men went through. This American story, what they went through, what they struggled with. And so she had a family member in the military, and so it just touched and tugged at her heartstrings. I've heard that the show is fantastic. It makes you sit at the edge of your seat. And so that's what we aim to do, not only have people sit at the edge of the seat, but also inspire people to change their way of thinking, and just learn about a story that many do not know of, and look forward to just supporting your military, as well as keeping them accountable, keeping our citizens accountable.
Right. I told somebody, and the way I've always promoted it since we found out it was going to come out to Rialto, I told them that this is Rialto's hidden figure moment.
Right.
Some of the most important things and I don't want to make it about just when I say our African American history, because this wasn't about the killing or the deaths of just African American men. There were over 360 plus men killed in the explosion, 200, I want to say, of African American descent, but the other ones were of Caucasian descent. So it wasn't just about the fact that they died. It was the fact that probably one of the most important things that I got from just reading the bio on it, that they were never actually trained for their job. And then you ask yourself, you probably didn't get a chance to listen to my last interview. We were talking about Colin Kaepernick, and I was talking with Archie Griffin. And that's just one of those inequalities that we talk about sometimes, that because they didn't see us as, equals or as common people, why train them? And here you're putting young men in the war, and they're probably handling the most highly sensitive material in the war at that time. It wasn't like cyber or anything. It was about gunpowder. And to not be trained and then to have an explosion that kills so many men. I mean, we're talking over 360 men were killed in one explosion. And then, the gist of the play, I tell people a lot of times, is the fact that, at that time, and tell me, am I right? Because I think I read this right. Thurgood Marshall was the attorney who had to defend these men. Am I right?
Yes, Thurgood Marshall. He was in his beginning stages of being a lawyer. It was before the Brown versus Board, and so he was the gentleman who defended these men,
this
as
case,
well
right?
as the Eleanor Roosevelt, who also stepped in.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny because I tell people, in light of the movie Marshall that's coming out, this is one of his earliest, probably in my mind, because I didn't know about it, it was probably one of his greatest wins because he went up against the United States. It wasn't like he was going up against another attorney. He was going up against the country that we live in and honor.
Right. Exactly. And
yes.
so he like the men, he put his best foot forward and sought justice for these men.
And now the goal, I got to say, the goal for the crew and for yourself and Dennis Rowe, you're trying to get this adopted and brought onto the mainstream of Broadway. Am I right?
Yes, the mainstream on Broadway, right on Broadway, right there, where everybody can see it and come and enjoy.
All the bright lights are. This is an all-Broadway play that's coming to Rialto. Let me give y'all guys the dates one more time. December 1st, an 8 o'clock show at the Rialto Performing Arts Theater, Rialto High School Performing Arts Theater. And then again on Saturday, there are two shows, a matinee at 2 p.m. and then again at 8 p.m. We'll be having the finale of the weekend and that last show. And Mayor Robinson, when you get there on Friday, you'll hear about an after party that she's doing for her election as well. I'm just telling you, Deborah Robinson, our mayor in the city of Rialto, amazing lady and is a dedicated historian. I tell people that all the time because she keeps giving me more history than I even knew myself. And then, I want to thank you for coming on and giving us a little bit more history about the play. And, I look forward to meeting you on Friday. I'm getting over a little chest cold, as you can probably hear. But I told myself, I said, I got to get up on Tuesday and do my show and get the guys on to promote the show one last time. We want to thank you for stopping by, and we're looking forward to Friday.
Looking forward to bringing it to you, and looking forward to meeting you, and inspiring everyone who comes and see it.
Yes, exactly. Get on out. If y'all don't know, you can go to the Facebook for Athletes for Life Foundation. You can click on the links. It'll take you to Eventbrite. You can get your tickets online. It's only $35 a ticket. I'll give you a special code if you go on to the Athletes for Life Facebook page. You'll even get the chance to get the ticket for a reduced cost. So for all you guys listening, get out this weekend and see Port Chicago 50 off-Broadway play performing in the IE at the Rialto High School Performing Arts Theater Friday and Saturday. Shackelford, thank you for stopping in to the Legends Community Show. And as I said, I look forward to meeting you on Friday.
Thank you for having me.
All righty. Well, guys, you're listening to the Legends Community Show. Of course, I'm your host, Greg Bell. And like always, we're going to get back to what has brought us here, and that being sports talk all the way across the board. As I talked earlier, if you didn't catch the early part of the show, talked about the Rams. Hey, Ram fans. Okay, I'm getting mixed signals here from a lot of people. You got potentially 6 to 7 Pro Bowl players. You got a team that's 8-3. And I heard through the grapevine that we barely got 55,000 out at the stadium last week. I'm hoping those numbers are wrong. But how do we get a team to continue to play at high levels and get the fans out to cheer for them? Not only are we not getting enough fan support, we got to get more fan support down for the Chargers too. They're the LA Chargers playing down at Home Depot Stadium. I know it has a new name, guys, but I have no clue what it is. I know what it was built under, Home Depot Field. So I always call it that. That's the only name I know it by. They right now are 5-6, one game out of first place. And they're only averaging about 17 of the 28,000 seats. Come on, Los Angeles. Let's remember, we got 2 winning teams right now. And no, the Chargers 5-6 doesn't seem impressive, but they're on a hot streak right now. The Chargers are playing great football right now, and somebody's got to be able to get out here and tell people that's the kind of football you want to go out and see. And what can I say about the Rams? Jared Goff probably headed to his first Pro Bowl. Aaron Donald's probably heading to his 4th Pro Bowl. Jim Hecker, our punter. This guy's a 3-time Pro Bowler, 5-time All-Pro kicker. This guy just continues to punt the ball like nobody else. And Zerlin, Greg Zerlin, he probably is going to head to his first Pro Bowl this year. Right now, Zerlin is got 129 points. He is leading the league in scoring. And this might be his first All-Pro year. And, you know, whether you like it or not, Tremaine Johnson has had one hell of a year at the cornerback position. All of these guys could be heading to the Pro Bowl for the Rams, and we're not even averaging 60,000 every week. We should be averaging 62,000 seats. The Rams are only selling 65,000 seats, period. So come on now, Ram fans, let's get out, support the Rams. Sorry about that, guys. Like I said, I didn't want to lose this week with all the good guests we had coming on. And, you know, I didn't even mention probably the most important thing. When you're talking about the Rams, how can you talk about the Rams sitting atop of the NFC West at 8-3, and you forget to say, oh, by chance, Sean McVay might be the NFL Coach of the Year? Think about that. Youngest coach in the league, greatest turnaround. They've already, if they finish the season where they are right now, remember they only won 3 games last year. We've already got 8. He's doubled and almost tripled one. Get one more win, it's 3 times the number they did last year. This guy is headed for being named the Coach of the Year. And if the Chargers continue to progress the way they are, their head coach is going to be listed as the AFC Coach of the Year, because he's going to turn around a team that started the season 0-5, and now they're 5-6. I mean, I don't know what y'all can be doing on Sundays that are more important. And then let's face it. After watching what we watched on television last week, and I tell you, this has been the topic on everybody's news. Did the NFL come down hard enough on Crabtree and Talib Khalid from the Denver Broncos? And here's what I got to say, guys, and I know it's probably my view, and it's probably a little bit harsher. You know, I probably would have put them out for the rest of the season. What I saw was so unclassful, was so distasteful, in lieu of all the things that are going on. I think our fines and missing games, they're not subject to the same penalty, because when you miss a game, you miss a game check. Each guy gets paid different money. It needs to be one set charge. And the team, and that's on top of him missing the game. I don't care. I was embarrassed for the National Football League. I was embarrassed for, Mark Davis. I was embarrassed for the Bowen family in Denver, because here they're 2 outstanding players. These aren't young players. These are guys with 7 years or more into this league. And they showed a childish behavior that half of these rookies don't show. And it was just disturbing to me to watch Crabtree. And mind you, his effort was there. And he knew what he was doing. Guys, they tell you to block to the whistle. The whistle blew before the guy was at the outside line, before he hit the boundary. And what he did, the next 10 feet of pushing and jabbing and on the floor and taking him down, it was unnecessary and it was childish. And that should have been penalty all itself. And then all the scramble afterwards was just about as ridiculous could be. Very disheartening to watch Michael Crabtree, who has a lot more class than that. I've talked to him. I've seen him out at the training camp. I don't know why that history is between these two. It can't just be about a gold chain. That's what everybody's talking about, what happened last year. If you didn't happen to see the game last year, Talib Khalid snatched his gold chain off of his neck, breaking it. And a lot of people ask, why do they wear jewelry of that nature? You know, guys wear all kinds of things. That's a moot point. The fact of the matter is that was childish last year, and what was done this past week was about as childish could be. It almost resembled MMA boxing, fighting, I should say, not boxing. all the swinging, the throwing, the yelling, the delay in the game was pathetic. And it's hard, guys, I'm telling you, for those 7 officials to control, these 22 men, that are on the field. It's very hard for them to do that. And it just got well out of hand last week. Also, I'm going to move on from that because I'm going to tell you what, guys, that was, with all this going on in the National Football League this right now, that was the last thing I really want to see. And the worst part about it, it's been going on for the last couple of weeks. We've seen rumbling like this on our national television, and there's got to be something that the league office is going to have to step in very quickly and put a squash to it. And maybe it's not only, excuse me, like I said, I'm trying to be a warrior here with this chess code. Not only is the NFL, though I think they need to step in with a true fine, but a fine on top of a game lost check. If you don't care about your money, then you don't really care about the person that you're playing with anyway. You don't really care about the team because, you know what? It's a job number 1, and it's a team number 2. So if you don't care about your money, I doubt you care about the team either. So, something the league office and the owners are going to have to approach and discuss because the young guys are seeing this. You see it in the college level all the time because of the young emotions that are surrounded. But you can't, these are grown men that all have families. Their kids are watching them, and they have an appearance. They have a responsibility to demonstrate the kind of the kind of dignity they need to show while they're on the field. Guys, you're listening to the Legends Community Show here on the Power of Voices. I am your host, Greg Bell. Had a fun 30 or 40 minutes or so talking to a dear friend of mine, Archie Griffin. If you missed that, when we go off, of course, you can tune in to the show on Thursday. You'll hear a repeat of the show and hear what Archie had to say about the Heisman. Now, one of the things I didn't really dive into him because if you heard him, you probably heard some of the things that he had to say about this year's Heisman. Now, of course, I would have loved to have said, "Hey, Archie, who's your pick?" But I can't put him on the spot like that. That's not favorable. That's not right. Well, let's talk about the Heisman Trophy. It's coming up in less than 20 days, and it'll be in New York. I'm predicting that the 5 guys that Archie mentioned are the 5 guys that are going to be there. Lamar Jackson, who is having one hell of a year. I mean, just like Archie said, if you haven't been watching Lamar Jackson, he's having a better year than last year when he won the Heisman. Unfortunately for Lamar, his team is 8-4, not 10-2. And they're not playing the high-level opponents. He's not going up against the OUs, the Ohio States, the Penn States, the Wisconsin. He's not playing teams at that caliber. And then the teams that they are of that caliber, they beat them. They're 8-4 this year. More than likely, you can hear it in Archie's tone, Lamar probably would not win the Heisman Trophy. Then, of course, he talked about Saquon Barkley. Man, if there's one thing you can hear in Archie's voice, he loved to watch this guy run, him and Bryce Love. Bryce Love, the outstanding running back at Stanford. Junior, Saquon Barkley is a junior. Lamar Jackson is a junior. And then there was Jonathan Taylor. Jonathan Taylor will probably be the only freshman at the Heisman Trophy ballot and at the Downtown Athletic Club. But this man, I'm going to tell you what, if Jonathan Taylor wants to put himself at the front runner of Heisman's in the future, have a big game against Ohio State this Saturday in the Big Ten championship game. If he has the kind of game like he's been performing all year long, he's leading the Big Ten in rushing. He's amongst the top 3 in the nation in rushing behind Bryce Love and the young man out of San Diego State, name slips me right now. But when you talk about running backs, this kid, Jonathan Taylor, is special. He's got a 5th gear, which all 3 of the backs that Archie mentioned, Saquon Barkley, Bryce Love, Jonathan Taylor, all of them have that 5th gear. Sorry about the cough, guys. Like I said, I'm fighting the chess code. Didn't want to leave the show hanging. And then you got Baker Mayfield, guys. And right now, all votes are headed towards him, even with the embarrassing outcome, him and his gesture towards the fans and everything that happened in Kansas. Baker Mayfield is probably still the front runner right now. And he's the front runner for one reason, I think, more than the other, is the fact that Oklahoma's number 3, 4 in polls. I think Oklahoma is number 4 in the poll in the college football championship series, and they're 11-1 right now, and they're going into the Big 12 playoff, and they'll probably get a big win over TCU and find themselves still in that number 4 position. But those are the 5 guys who are going to be in New York. And guys, all I can tell you right now is don't blink. Don't blink, because some of these voters might see that Lamar Jackson still had a great year. Even at 8-4, he could shock the world and do something that only one man to this day has done since 1975. Think of that. Archie Griffin walked away with the second Heisman after his senior year in 1975, and he still, to this date, is the only person. Tim Tebow had a chance to repeat. Who else? The big quarterback out of Oklahoma at the Rams, Sam Bradford, had a chance to repeat. Of course, Bo Jackson had a chance to repeat. There's been a lot of guys who've had a chance to repeat and have decided to go pro or didn't have a senior year like they expect. But Lamar Jackson is a junior with a senior year to come. So keep your eye on Lamar Jackson. We might eventually see one of the oldest records in college football fall at some point in the next year or possibly 2 years. So, guys, this has been a fun hour with you guys. We had a great time. Hope you enjoyed the show. I hope you enjoyed the interview with Archie Griffin. Guys, like I tell you, it's great when 2 Columbus legends can sit down and talk and have a fun conversation about college football and pro football in general. Guys, you've been listening to the Legends Community Show right here on the Power of Voices.com. Listen all day. We've got a lot of great programming. Didn't get a chance to hear my guy, Jesse T, but I'm sure he was shouting it out. Until next week, guys, peace, and I'm out.